Fast Peugeots are a bit like that weird member of your extended family who you don't see for 10 years at a time because of weird tax reasons, but then they turn up at your front door and shower your family with gifts before disappearing again into the night, not to be seen for another decade. Because recently, Peugeot's not really done many performance cars. Sure, 10 years ago we had the RCZR, that was good. I like the aluminium roof hoops, which I think were made in the UK. Then you had the 208 GTI and the 308 GTI with its weird optional half red, half black coupe franche paint scheme, which just made it look like a grammar school boy's blazer. And then it all went very quiet and they said, no, we're not making any more performance cars, until they remembered they had a Le Mans program to promote. So they made this, the 508 PSE, Peugeot Sport Engineered. It is the most powerful production Peugeot ever made. I've been living with it for a week. You can't hear that it's powerful because the engine's not on, and that's part of its complicated charm. Let's find out if it's any good. Yes, this week's subject in the lay-by of nonsense and judgment is quite an interesting fast estate car. It's the Peugeot 508 SW PSE, or Peugeot Sport Engineered. It is, wait for it, a £55,000 Peugeot, but it is the most powerful production Peugeot ever with 360 horsepower, and I've been living with it for a week, so in this video I'm going to tell you if it's going to hoist your tricolour flag over your Louvre, if that makes any sense, or if it's going to be exiled to the island of Elba forever. Let's go. Right, because this is a fast estate car, we're going to start under the bonnet of this big sexy slab of 1.6 litre plastic. This has got 200 horsepower, this petrol engine, and it drives the front wheels through an 8-speed auto box. But it is joined by two electric motors, one here and one on the back axle. They've each got about 115 horsepower, so in total 360 horsepower. But most of it is going through the front axle, which does mean this feels more front-wheel drive than four-wheel drive most of the time. It is fast though, it will do 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. Peugeot is pitching this at the likes of the Audi S4, which is a bit boring, and the BMW M340i xDrive, which is rather blooming brilliant. But this does things very differently, and I have to say, it's not massively efficient. It's meant to do 30 miles on a charge. I've been getting 20 in electric mode. And also it's got a small fuel tank, 42 litres, like most PHEVs. So actually, I can only do about 250 miles to a tank of fuel in this because it gets about 28 mpg, or 22 mpg if you stick it in sport mode, which is not great in terms of fuel economy. And it does mean this isn't really a long distance car, which is a bit of a shame because it looks like it should be one. But anyway, other boring electric facts: you can charge the battery in about 7 hours on a 3-pin plug, or I think it's 1 hour 45 on a 6-7 kilowatt hour wall box at home. Now I am going to talk about the looks of this car because have you ever seen one? I think they're rarer than hen's teeth being that expensive, but it's a proper halo model for Peugeot and I think it looks properly good. Now it does only come in white, grey or black, which is a bit boring, but things are livened up slightly by these kind of fluorescent greeny yellow Adidas stripes on the bonnet and on the wings to say it's the PSE version, and being a PSE version it gets the kitchen sink thrown at it in terms of kit. So you've got matrix LED headlights as standard and a load of other interior stuff which we'll see in a bit. Now this being the facelift has got this new wide black grille which looks quite cool. One of my favourite little design details, and I'm not one for looks obviously with this jacket on, but you've got these little slats here which are repeated at the back which look quite race car, as do the massive 20-inch alloy wheels wrapped in proper Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres, and it's got 380mm discs front and rear, Alcon made brakes, bright luminous brake calipers as well, so it looks very well engineered for sportiness. The suspension, it's adaptive dampers, it sits 4mm lower than a regular 508 SW, and they are adaptive dampers as well that can go between firm and soft depending on what driving mode you're in. Now in terms of length, it's 4.8 metres long, a bit longer than a Skoda Octavia Estate, but a bit smaller on the inside, and it weighs nearly 1.9 tonnes. So does it feel like a 55 grand car in here? Well, yes and no. It feels a bit plasticky in places, but the tech is quite good. Now obviously you got a small steering wheel as part of Peugeot's design philosophy, and it doesn't work as well in a low down estate as it does in an SUV, but you can still see the dashboard. It's a 12-inch digital dashboard. It's actually got night vision built into it, so when you're driving at night you get an extra option. It's slightly low res and grainy, but it does beep at you when it spots pedestrians walking at the side of the road, which is quite handy. I've had that happen a few times. Weirdly though, you don't get the 3D option like you do in the 2008. So this is a halo car without all the latest stuff in it, which is a little bit on the cheap side. Now, the facelift of this 508 removed the older robot dildo gear selector, and you've got this little switch there now. So yeah, you've got more room, you've got cup holders, you've got a bit of a cubby under there, which is quite shallow. And under here, you've got a couple of USBs, if I can open it. There you go, you've got a couple of USB-A's back there as well. The infotainment is a touchscreen, as you can imagine, but it's got these little piano keys down there to switch between the menus. It's a little bit of a faff to use, but it's got wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, so that is okay. Now, there are a couple of cool things in this car, namely the seats. They are massage seats as standard, and they're all right. They're pretty good. They're very comfortable, and they're a little bit huggy as well, but my knee does get jammed in down there a little bit. And also, this car is hiding, sorry, changing hands my camera, it's got a wireless charger underneath there, which you're not going to be able to see because it's like the black hole of Calcutta. Now, my biggest negative, as always with a French car, is the glove box is a half-width jobby. The door bins are a bit plasticky, so stuff rattles around in there as well, and you've got this slightly dodgy fake carbon along there. Now, last few interior bits that are worth noticing are you get frameless doors, which feel quite premium, and I do actually quite like the Peugeot Sport Engineered kick plates down there, which just look quite funky. And I didn't point out that you get a focal sound system, a standard, and it's actually really quite good. You get these kind of metal vents over the speakers in the door, and it's really punchy and quite bassy. Right, we're going to go for driving the 508 PSE. You hold the start button for a bit longer than you think, like most Peugeots. Back into D, and then it pulls away in electric or hybrid mode most of the time if you've got enough battery charge. And the first thing you really notice in this car is that the ride is reasonably firm. Those big 20-inch wheels aren't doing it any favours. And as I said earlier, they do change in the driving mode. So you've got an electric driving mode, then you've got comfort, which obviously puts them in the most comfortable setting. Then you've got a hybrid mode, and then you've got a sport mode, then you've got a four-wheel drive mode. So yeah, it's got driving modes out the wazoo. Thank you very much, Dogman. But yeah, I've been using it a lot in sport mode because that gets you around most of this car's problems, and that is the gearbox on the petrol engine doesn't really feel like it's always talking to the hybrid system and the electric motors, and sometimes you'll put your foot down and you won't actually go that fast if the petrol engine isn't woken up, if the motors aren't in their sportier setting. But in sport mode, yeah, it kicks down and then it goes, and it is fast, but it doesn't always feel as if you're going to get all 360 horsepower. Sometimes you'll only get electric power, in which case it's quite a slow car, and then sometimes the petrol engine doesn't really kick down, and it's a little bit all over the place, to be honest. And it's not like something like the M340i or Audi S4 where there's always power available. In this, you're very aware that 360 horsepower figure is kind of made up with smoke, mirrors, and a combination of electricity and petrol that you don't always get. You have to be in the right mode to get the performance. But yeah, it's got a nice slug of torque though, and you do feel the electric motors trying to fill in the gaps in the petrol engine, but it just doesn't always work. And actually, as I said, this is mostly front wheel drive. Well, it's more front biased than rear biased, I should say. I've been driving this a lot in the wet. Now, wet roundabouts, you put your foot down thinking, oh, I've got all wheel drive traction. And you don't, you get understeer, the front wheels spin up and you push wide. So it's not that satisfying to drive in a sort of lead-footed Tim Roady sort of style. In the wet, it does get satisfying when you're feeding the power in and going easy on the accelerator and squeezing it gently out of corners, because then you don't overwhelm the front tires with that electric motor. So yeah, it can be rewarding and you can get into a flow with it, but it doesn't come as naturally as in the German rivals. And it does feel quite odd to be saying German rivals in this, but hey, there we are. Now, yeah, let's talk about some other things. In sport mode, the MPG absolutely plummets, but it does seem to recharge the battery off the engine in that mode, which I guess is why it is so inefficient. I saw 22 MPG in this yesterday. But yeah, the steering, I mean, it's as numb as in any modern car, but it is nice and direct. And when you're driving quickly, it doesn't lean in corners, and the steering actually feels nice and weighted. It's an artificial weighting because it changes depending on the driving mode. But around here, you can lean on the tires as long as you don't accelerate too hard. And it does become a fast cross-country, I don't want to say weapon, but companion. So yeah, you can have fun in it. It's just not really imbued in its DNA. It doesn't feel like it really wants to be driven sportily all the time, but it can do it. if you drive it correctly. So yeah, to drive is a bit of a mixed bag, but at the same time, I have to appreciate the fact it's doing something no other car has really done. Mixing 2 electric motors with a petrol engine is, yeah, there, see there, I got a real big slug of acceleration and it goes fast. But if I wasn't in sport mode, you would be waiting for the gearbox and hybrid system to have a little argument in French under the bonnet and be like, I'm not, after you, no, you first. And then your overtaking spot is gone, which is just a bit of a shame. But when it works, it's good. I like it. Actually, just before we go back for a conclusion, I've got just under half a tank of petrol left, and it's saying that will get me 83 miles, meaning 160 miles to a full tank of petrol. And I've averaged 25.6 mpg over 100 or so miles. Yeah, Peugeot, I know you designed this to show off your hybridness in your Le Mans program, but genuinely, I could get more MPG out of a 5-litre V8 Mustang. Slightly different car, but yeah. But anyway, I've gone around the houses a bit, figuratively and literally. Let's go back for a conclusion on this quite sometimes brilliant, sometimes disappointing slice of French exotica, I guess. Let's go back. Right, to sum up my thoughts on the Peugeot 508 SW PSE, all of the letters, it is a beautiful car. It is something unusual, a performance plug-in hybrid estate. And as a petrol head, that kind of speaks to me in quite a cool way. And the good news is 55 grand sounds like a lot of money, but they depreciate like a stone. I've seen one on Auto Trader, admittedly a pre-facelift, but it only had 4,000 miles on it for 30 grand. So yeah, they lose value really quickly. And I think it might be a good car for the sort of person that wants something interesting, quirky and fast if you can learn to drive it properly and flow with it down the road rather than trying to like lead foot it everywhere like you might do in an Audi S4. But yeah, the price is a sticking point. It's not that practical really in terms of boot space and rear seat space, and the ride can be a bit firm as well. And to really get the most performance out of it, you need to be in the right mode and have some charge in the battery. It's a little bit of a fiddle. In an M340i, it all just works with a lovely gearbox that doesn't have any delay in it. It makes a 6-cylinder noise. And given that Peugeot is pitching this against that car, that's a bit bonkers in my opinion. Yeah, I would pick the BMW. But yeah, no, Peugeot isn't known for doing things kind of sensibly. Look at the RCZ that I mentioned in the intro. I think it's an interesting thing. I'm glad it exists. I'm going to give it 7 Tim Roadies out of 10. Maybe 6, but yeah, the M340i gets a pretty solid 9 in my book, so you have to really want one of these to go and buy one. But hey, we should be grateful that there are performance cars in this age of electrification-ness. That was quite a waffly outro, wasn't it? There were more waffles in that than in that Jonas Brothers song about waffle houses. But anyway, if you've made it this far, you deserve a bloody medal, because this one went on a bit. Thank you for watching. It's been a really good month for the channel, so please keep subscribing, keep watching, because there'll be plenty more car reviews coming soon when I won't be freezing my bits off out here. I should have put a jacket on that's, yeah, a bit warmer and not open. But you know, it's so stylish, I had to do it. It's not stylish, is it? I'm going to leave you to look at that Peugeot.